I'd like to start with a short prayer from the Upanishads. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaskar, and thank you for organizing this beautiful event and calling me here to this beautiful facility. Thanks to the students community at MSU, to the Indian community in East Lansing, and to my hosts for organizing this. Is it too loud? No. As long as the people furthest from me can hear me, can everybody hear me? Sounds good. So to straight into the subject itself. Karma and freedom. Karma is one of the most fundamental concepts in Indian religion and philosophy. You see, in the enormous diversity of Indian religions, Hinduism itself is so diverse. Sometimes I'm called in to give introductory talks on Hinduism to schools and college students, their courses on religion here in the United States. And I have to say that whatever I say about Hinduism, it is, anything that you ask about Hinduism, the answer will always be yes and no. If you say, do the Hindus believe in God? Yes and no. Is God male? Yes and no. God is male and female, both male and female, beyond gender, with form and without form. There are Hindu philosophies like Sankhya and a kind of yoga which is agnostic about God, or non-theistic at least. So, Hinduism is enormously diverse in its range of beliefs, its practices, its rituals and mythologies. You just have to go to a Hindu temple to see the enormous diversity of what's going on there. And yet, in all the different schools of Hinduism, if you look at the different philosophies within the Orthodox fold of Orthodox Hinduism, you have the Nyaya and the Vaisheshika, the Sankhya and the Yoga, the Purva Mimamsa and the Vedanta, each with their sub-schools. The Vedanta itself has so many sub-schools. And yet all of them, they don't agree on much, but they agree on one thing: karma and its implications, that is rebirth in many lives. So karma and rebirth or reincarnation, that's sort of common to all these different diverse streams of Hinduism. Add to this the other kinds of Indic religion, very ancient traditions, Buddhism. Buddhists don't agree with the Hindus on some fundamental matters. They do not agree, it's a process philosophy, so they do not agree on an eternal, unchanging self. They do not agree that there is God. It's a non-theistic religion. Jainism, another ancient religion, is not so well known in the United States. In Buddhism, at least, is very popular. That's again non-theistic. So all of these, the relatively more modern religion of Sikhism. So they're very, very diverse, very different. Very few things that they believe on in common, but one of them, without any deviation, is karma and reincarnation. So this is pretty much a common thread that runs through the diverse religious and philosophical traditions from India, both within Hinduism and outside Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and so on. So it's important. I remember one monk in the Himalayas, Swami was speaking in Hindi, he was saying that, he was talking about the diversity of views, but how karma is a common thread in all of them. And he used this phrase, "Ye gambhir tattva hai," in Hindi. He said, this is a very profound doctrine, the teaching of karma. And today the word karma is not esoteric anymore. It's pretty popular. It's somebody was just saying yesterday, or day before yesterday, that we hear it more in America than in India. The word karma. It's become so popular. So, and the way karma is used in America, in English, that as you sow, so shall you reap, it's my karma, what goes around comes around, and so on. It's actually not very far from the central idea of karma. It's pretty correct actually. So what is karma? What are its implications? And especially for our spiritual life. So that's going to be the theme of this talk. I'll speak for a while, maybe less than an hour, and I hope we'll have sufficient time for interaction and question and answer after that. So the basic theme is karma and its implications for our spiritual life. Karma and freedom, basically. What is karma? If you look at, I looked at a standard dictionary of key terms in Indian philosophy, and I came across 12 meanings, 12 different meanings. But all they're not very different from each other. Basically, the idea is this, that what might be called the law of karma, in Sanskrit karma vada, the doctrine of karma, is this. Positive, constructive actions, technically dharmic actions, they generate merit, in Sanskrit punya. So good actions generate merit, and these merits give results. The results of merit are happiness. Good things happen to you if you have good karma. So positive, constructive action, consciously done, dharmic actions, generate good karma, technically punya. Punya and papa are terms which are very common throughout India. Everybody sort of uses them non-philosophically. But they have a technical meaning. So this potential, the punya, the merit, gives rise to what is called sukha. Sukha means happiness. What that happiness constitutes of, we shall see a little later. Negative action, destructive action, consciously done bad, so-called bad action, generates demerit, papa in Sanskrit. And this results in dukkha, suffering. So here you have this equation. Good action, merit, happiness. Bad action, demerit, unhappiness. In Sanskrit, dharma, punya, sukha. Adharma, papa, dukkha. And this is basically what might be called the law of karma. Basically, you're good, if you're a good boy or girl, you get rewarded. You get the just deserts of what you have done. And if somebody is naughty, well, then the results are unpleasant. So this is something that has dominated a wide range of Indian philosophical thought. I was looking it up, how far back can you go? It goes all the way back to the Vedas. There are traces of the karma doctrine strewn throughout the Vedas, in the Upanishads, definitely in the Bhagavad Gita, and so on. Everywhere you find it, in different names, in different forms. It was adapted, the Buddhist monks were teaching it 2,500 years ago, the Jains were teaching it earlier than that, and so it's pervasive everywhere. Now, what do you do with this law of karma? How does it impact our lives? You can actually use it to understand something as rich and diverse and complex as Hinduism and the other Indian traditions too. Houston Smith, in his classic book, The Religions of the World, earlier in less politically correct days, it was called Religions of Man, but now it's Religions of the World. The first chapter is on Hinduism, and he starts the chapter by saying that it's such a complex diversity of views and practices and rituals. How do you make sense of it? What's an underlying theme? And so, the underlying theme that he discovers, Houston Smith, he says, Hinduism, and I liked it. I never thought of it that way, but what he says is, Hinduism basically is telling us, we can have what we want. We can have what we want. And I can see some smiles coming up, but before you become too happy, the big question is, what do we want? What really do we want? That is the real question. And the way it has been seen in India since ancient times is that basically what we want are four things. One is karma, pleasure. The other one is artha, literally wealth, but also success, power, achievement, status, whatever you call it. And the third thing is dharma. Again, a term which will have multiple meanings. You look up any standard book on Indian philosophy or religion, dictionaries, they have a page full of meanings of dharma. It might mean religion, morality, ethics. A simple textbook of Indian terms in Indian philosophy, I got 13 meanings of dharma from that. But anyway, dharma means morality, ethics, the good life versus the pleasant life. And beyond that, moksha, literally meaning freedom. And we will understand all of this in the perspective of karma. So let's take a look at all of these. So freedom means spiritual freedom or transcendence. Kama, artha, dharma, moksha. I know many people from India here would find it strange that I should put it that way, because normally in India we never use it in that sequence. We always say dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So there's a reason why. Houston Smith describes it very nicely. He says, all of these are attempts to find fulfillment. Basically what we want is happiness, fulfillment, peace, lasting, profound satisfaction in life. We want to overcome pain and attain some kind of peace and satisfaction, joy, lasting happiness in life. And these are the ways in which human beings pursue the desire for fulfillment. It does not say that you have to pursue these. These are just the report of the ways we try to be happy. So the first thing is, when we try to be happy, we can generally pursue pleasure. Pleasure. It could be anything from eating a cookie to a very refined pleasure, like listening to classical music and so on. So pleasure in its wide spectrum, from sensual pleasure to a more advanced, refined forms of pleasure. This is usually the first way we try to be happy. Grab something to eat, go watch a movie. This pleasure is a way we want to be happy. But very soon we realize that it is not enough. Houston Smith in his book, he says, even the most refined forms of pleasure, then if you listen to sublime music, Mozart or Beethoven, he says, and after that also you still have this little nagging question in your mind. Is that all that there is in life? Is that all? So pleasure is not enough. Everybody soon discovers. Somerset Maugham, he wrote The Razor's Edge, which actually inspired a lot of people to go backpacking in India in search of spirituality. In this country especially, when people become spiritual, they usually get their backpack out and their passport and they get a visa to India. That's good, but spirituality really lies within. Somerset Maugham, he says that if you single-mindedly pursue pleasure, very soon you find nothing pleasing in it. So pleasure has a limit. We seek for happiness in artha, which is pursuit of achievement, wealth, status. Somebody builds up a big business, so these are the forms in which, or goes into politics or something, achievement, status and power. That is another way where we seek to get happiness. It's interesting that right now there is a whole movement in positive psychology, study of happiness in an academic, rigorous academic fashion. Seligman, Martin Seligman, he has written these books, Authentic Happiness and so on. Professor Seligman speaks about happiness having three components.
He writes this equation down. H, happiness, is equal to P plus E plus M. P stands for pleasure, E stands for engagement. That means if you like what you do for a living, if you can find satisfaction in some kind of activity, it might be a profession, it might be a hobby, that's engagement. And then there is happiness in what he calls M, meaning, a meaningful life. Now the moment I read happiness is a function of pleasure, engagement, and meaning, immediately you know what came to my mind? Because I know this idea of dharma, artha, kama. And can we map them? And it turns out we can actually. This very ancient Indian idea that happiness is a function of kama, pleasure. Literally, it maps to Seligman's equation. And then artha. Artha literally means achievement, wealth, power, success. Somehow you can sort of map it to engagement. And then again, dharma. One of whose meanings would be an ethical, moral life, can be mapped, if you stretch it a little bit, to the meaning component of Seligman's equation. So, actually it maps very well. Happiness is a function of pleasure, engagement, and meaning. Kama, artha, dharma. And Seligman points out that it is our own experience, human experience, that pleasure actually gives less happiness and less lasting happiness than engagement. So if you love your job, what you do, maybe you're a researcher in university, you love that. That's not always pleasurable, but it gives you a lot more satisfaction than watching, say, a game on TV. Watching a game on TV, pleasurable. Doing research in your lab, if you love to do that, that may not be always physically pleasurable, but it's deeply satisfying. So engagement actually gives more happiness than just pleasure. And he points out that meaning in life usually consists of, often it's related to doing things for others. That gives even more happiness than pleasure or engagement. And that was the understanding. Dharma, a meaningful life, ethical life, moral life, is more important than artha and kama. What is it? How is it related to karma, the idea of karma? Dharma, moral and ethical life, moral and ethical action, are supposed to provide the merit, the punya, necessary for generating happiness. So, according to the Indian idea of karma, if you do good karma and if you store up, by the way, karma is used in both senses. The action you perform is karma, and the result of that action, as when we say, I have a lot of good karma. So that is the result, accumulated result of that action. Both are called karma. So good karma generates artha and kama. Your endeavors in the world become more successful. In India, it's very common to say a very successful person, somebody who succeeds at whatever. You say, man with a golden touch or something, like succeeds at whatever that person does very quickly. That person has a lot of good karma, a lot of accumulated punya. So a little bit of effort leads to a lot of success in the realm of kama and artha, for example. So that is the idea, the general idea. Beyond all of this, is this all you can still ask? Pleasure, engagement, meaning, dharma, artha, kama. In India, by the way, we do not generally say pleasure, engagement, meaning. We put the meaning component first. So ethical and moral life and pleasure and engagement are based, artha and kama are based within the limits, within the boundaries of an ethical and moral life. Is this all? All the Indian philosophies, within Hinduism, outside Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, all of them would say no. The real point of human life lies even beyond dharma, even beyond what is generally accepted as conventional morality and ethics. It lies in transcendence, in spirituality, in ultimate freedom. The law of karma, one of its consequences is that since our karma gives results and we do not see all the results in this life, so in order to get the results of our own karma, we will somehow have to exist beyond this life. And all the results that we see now must have been generated by some karma earlier. So in some sense we must have existed before birth. So therefore, we did not come into existence with the birth of this body, and we will not go out of existence with the death of this body. The logic is this: when we are born, we have a variety of effects. Some child is born into poverty and sickness and miserable conditions. Another child is born in, say, an advanced country like this, in a wonderful society, a caring parents, and a caring society. What karma, remember the logic is, we get what we deserve. So, what karma did that newborn baby do to deserve either thing? Nothing. So, there must have been some kind of karma earlier, whose results we are seeing now. And therefore it follows that that baby is not a new creation. It's a new birth for an ancient creature. So, babies are actually very, very old. They are very ancient creatures. We have existed many times. Vivekananda put it this way: each life is like the page of a book which we are reading. As we turn over the pages, new lives come and go, and the soul, the sentient being going from birth to birth, picks up experience and evolves spiritually thereby. But ultimately, this cycle of birth and death, we existed earlier and we will go on existing after death, but from a Hindu perspective or from an Indian perspective, this is not good news. This in fact is bondage. We are trapped actually ultimately in a series of births and deaths. And Buddha, for example, took a very pessimistic view of the whole thing. Sarvam dukkham, all is suffering. Ultimately, for a sensitive soul, for an inquiring person, for a mature person, spiritually mature person, you see this relative existence, limited existence, being born and dying again and again, is ultimately unsatisfactory, is ultimately full of pain, dukkha. Is there deliverance from this pain? Life is pervaded by, Buddha himself experienced, he saw sickness, and old age, and death, and repeated again and again and again. So is there deliverance from this? Is there transcending suffering? Is there any permanent, lasting joy or bliss? And the conclusion of all of the Indian philosophers, except the materialists, of all of the Indian philosophers, whether the different schools of Hinduism, different schools of Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, yes, there is an ultimate transcendence, freedom. And now we know what freedom means. Freedom from the law of karma, which would mean freedom from this cycle of births and deaths. So this, in India, moksha, spiritual freedom, one way it has been understood is freedom from this cycle of repeated births and deaths. We have been born many times, and we will continue to be so as long as we are within the cycle of karma. And freedom from this cycle of karma then becomes the ultimate goal of human existence. I remember this text. It's called Vichar Sagar. It's a text of late Vedanta, just 200, 300 years ago. There, human beings are classified into 4 categories. Now we have the structure in place, we can understand this. 4 categories. There is first, at the lowest category, the word is pamara, which means an instinctive life. Literally it means uncultured. Pamara means uncultured or unrefined. Instinctive life. Who are these people? These are people who, without regard to morality, without regard to ethics, they chase pleasure, maybe artha and kama, maybe out to make $1 million, out to have a party. So that becomes, what about morality? As long as they don't get caught by the police, it's alright. But that kind of attitude towards life, literally, fun and maybe success at any cost. That is called the lowest kind of attitude towards life. It's pamara or unrefined, that kind of thing. So you can see it's a pursuit of kama and artha. without regard to the law of karma. So a person might perform negative actions, immoral actions, in order to get quick gains, but that will generate bad karma. So ultimately it will lead to unhappiness. Higher than this is the person who is called a Vishayi, Dharmika Vishayi. A person who still wants success in life, pleasure in life, but within the bounds of morality and decency. Most people are like that. Otherwise society wouldn't survive. Most people, we like to consider ourselves as good people. We observe certain standards of morality, certain standards of ethics. And these are the second category of persons who pursue their goals of happiness in this world, a good life, within the limits of, within the boundaries of morality. So they are guided by not just artha and kama, but dharma, artha, kama. Meaningful life, engaged life, and pleasurable life. So that's the second category. The third category is those who see, those who are spiritually evolved enough to want something more. Like Mr. Smith, is this all? To want something more. Like the Buddha, asking for a release from this cycle of births and deaths, this repeated existence in limited forms. So these are what the term used is sadhaka, which means a spiritual seeker or practitioner. What does this person want? This person wants moksha, spiritual freedom. The fourth of the four goals. In fact, the Hindu scriptures say that is the ultimate purpose of human life, spiritual freedom. So moksha is the search for moksha. And this person practices various kinds of spiritual disciplines, is religious, is spiritual, with a goal not to be happy in this life and happy in the next life and be assured of a nice birth in the next incarnation and so on, but actually freedom from the entire thing, from the entire cycle, freedom from limited existence, freedom into an infinite existence. So that is the seeker of moksha. And the highest category, fourth category of persons, the term used is siddha. Siddha means the perfected one. This one seeks nothing, neither pleasure, nor success, nor even conventional morality, nor even spiritual transcendence, because that person has attained spiritual transcendence. So you have four categories of people. I want you to draw this picture in your mind. The four aims of human life. The four aims of human life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Pleasurable life, engaged life, meaningful life, and spiritual freedom. And the four categories: the instinctual person who wants only pleasure and success, instinctive life, unrefined life, pama. The next level is the decent person in this world who wants a good life in this world, and if he's a religious person, wants to go to heaven in the next world, and so on. This person pursues dharma, artha, kama, pleasurable life, successful life, and a meaningful life. And then comes the spiritual seeker who wants to go beyond, the sadhaka, who wants moksha, spiritual freedom. And then finally, already the perfected one, the spiritually perfected one, the free. In Hinduism, there are terms like Jivan Mukta. In Jainism, terms like the Jina. In Buddhism, the Bodhisattvas or the Buddhas. So who are free, already free while living. They do not seek any of them. In Shankaracharya's famous hymn, which we have heard many of us, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Nirvana Shataka Na dharmo na chartho na kamo na moksha. What do I want? I do not want dharma, I do not want kama, I do not want artha, I do not even want moksha. None of the four so-called four goals of life. Why? Because Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. I am of the nature of infinite bliss, existence, consciousness. Alright. So this becomes the goal of human life. Now we have got two things here. a person who wants a good, happy life in this world would do well to keep a watch on the law of karma, to be careful of and perform moral karma, ethical karma. By the way, a little inner secret of the law of karma, which is helpful. One thing they say is, see, the law of karma works in these ways. Whatever we have done in the past is accumulated. Accumulated karma is called sanchita karma. That means whatever has been accumulated in the past. We don't know. We don't know. This is a cosmic vacuum, does not give statements. We don't know what's there in our past karma. A part of that is activated in this life. That's called prarabdha karma. So whatever we are experiencing in this life, the circumstances of our life, parents and the genetic makeup of our body and our companions and the major events of our life, these are generated by that portion of the karma which has become activated in this body, called prarabdha karma. And while living in this life, we also keep on harvesting more karma, so which will be added to the total, which will give results in some future work that is called agami karma. Now, a practical point here is, a monk told me this. See, the whole thing you take away from this is, how do these karmas give results? Not, we have systems in inventory, last in, first out, first out, things like that. So is it sequential? What I did earlier that will give results first? No. The interesting thing is, they say that a lot of good karma gives results first, or a lot of bad karma gives results first. So if I have an enormous amount of good karma, that will come first. Even if I have bad karma, that will be suppressed for the time being. If I have done a lot of naughty things, that would give results first. Even all the good karma would be suppressed for the time being. So the practical point here is, that Swami told me, is that you keep on doing a lot of good karma. So that whatever might be the bad karma in your past, that will be suppressed. Let it be there. As long as it doesn't give results, you are not really concerned. As long as it doesn't fructify and start making life unpleasant for us, we are not really concerned about it. So keep on doing a lot of good karma and work for freedom from karma. So that is basically the takeaway a spiritual seeker might take from karma. By the way, the law of karma is not the point of Hinduism. It's very interesting. All spiritual masters would say that the law of karma is basically meant to be transcended. See, it does two things. One is, it fulfills the role, it fulfills the standards for morality. We lead a moral life because moral life leads to a happy life and immoral life leads to an unhappy life. That's one thing. But the second thing is, it makes us aware of the bondage we are in. We are trapped in a chain of causality, causes giving rise to consequences. And so the urge should be to escape from this into freedom, or to transcend the law of karma. That should be the goal. How do you do that? What is freedom from karma? Spirituality, it's actually nothing divorced from the fundamental pursuit of human life. What is the fundamental pursuit of human life? If you ask why spirituality, the answer is, it is basically the pursuit of trying to overcome suffering and attainment of lasting happiness and bliss. Because, you see, nobody really asks, why would you like to overcome suffering? Nobody asks that. Why spirituality, you might ask. But nobody really asks, why would you like to overcome suffering? Of course, nobody wants to suffer. Why do you want to be happy? Nobody asks. Everybody wants to be happy. That's fundamental. So in human life, whatever we are doing, we're trying to overcome suffering and attain happiness. And spirituality also is understood in that way. You see, one interesting thing is, in India this is understood quite well, that spirituality is basically the ultimate goal. We're trying to escape from this or transcend this cycle of birth and death. But this cycle of birth and death itself may not make much sense in this culture, for example, in this country, for example. Why? In the West, for example, the Abrahamic religions, They do not talk about multiple births and deaths. They talk about one life. So somebody might say, or a person who is not at all religious, say an atheist, not an agnostic, might say this whole project of trying to get freedom from multiple births and deaths is meaningless for me because I see this only one life. I haven't seen my past lives. That seems to be speculation. I don't know about future life. That also seems to be speculation. I just know this one life. So can we explain spirituality in terms of one life? Yes. There are in fact these two ways of understanding the same project of spirituality. One is many lives coming from the law of karma, or much more simply and much more directly, overcoming suffering, attainment of bliss. In Sanskrit, Atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptishya. Complete cessation of sorrow, transcendence of sorrow, and attainment of bliss. Now that's something people will say, I can sign up for that. I understand that idea. That yes, there is suffering, can we overcome suffering? And I would like to be happy, that is possible, lastingly happy. That's how in fact moksha, spiritual freedom, has been understood. In Indian, the different schools of Indian thought, overcoming sorrow, attainment of bliss, that's how it's basically been understood. And if you see, escape from this cycle of births and deaths and overcoming sorrow are basically the same thing. The entire cycle of births and deaths is basically seen as being sorrowful, ultimately tinged with pain, and so you need to get transcendence from that. How do you do it? Well, here we have a wide range of options. One thing we see when we come from India, we can see this, one thing that struck me in the United States, where the supermarkets, the enormous range of choices you get for everything. Now, the Indian religions are a bit like a spiritual supermarket. So you have an enormous range of choices. If you look at the different schools of Indian philosophy, each of them has their own idea of what moksha, freedom, is. The Buddhist schools have their own idea, nirvana. And that's not a homogeneous idea either. If you look into the different schools of Buddhism, they have their own variations of it. The Jainism, it is called Kaivalya or Kaivalya. That's another idea. The Hindu schools, Nyaya has its own idea. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, they have their own idea of freedom. Sankhya and Yoga have their own idea of freedom. Vedanta, the different schools of Vedanta, each have their own distinct ideas of freedom. Basically, the time remaining to me, we'll talk about the spiritual freedom and how to attain it. It depends on how the problem is posed. All of them agree that spiritual freedom is possible. There is a state beyond sorrow. There is an existence beyond sorrow, beyond suffering. There is an existence, many of them will agree, it's also an existence of bliss or happiness. Now, some of those schools are distinctly dualistic. They believe in, they're theistic. They believe in God. So, this being beyond sorrow is God, what you might call Ishwara or Saguna Brahman in different schools of Hinduism. And God is perfect, God is omniscient, omnipotent, all-loving, omnipresent. And if you attain to freedom, you get to go and live in a dimension, a kind of heaven with God, eternally. And you're free of the travails of constant embodiment, being born and dying again and again. And it's a blissful existence in the presence of God. That is the kind of freedom which some of the dualistic schools of Hinduism talk about, the bhakti schools of Vedanta, for example. And they have variations of this kind of freedom. Sayudhya, Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya. What do they mean? They all are variations of the same idea of God and heaven. You go and stay in the same place as God, on the same campus, as God. So that is Salokya. You go and stay in the proximity of God, or you attain to a oneness with the person of God. You become a companion, eternal companion of God. And all of these are said to be very blissful states, theistic ideas of freedom. There is another completely different idea of freedom, which is you find in the Sankhya and Yoga school. Their basic approaches, they generally do not talk about God or heaven in that sense. Their approach is that our real nature is pure consciousness, is awareness, sentience. We have become mixed up with material nature. How have we become mixed up with material nature? Bodies, even minds. Bodies and minds are part of material nature. They are not part of your nature, which is essentially spiritual, awareness, sentience. In Sanskrit, Chaitanya. Now this mixture is what is leading to suffering. And so if the mixture is leading to suffering, the separation will lead to freedom. So in Sankhya school or the Yoga school, the goal is to be separated from material nature. And you remain in your nature as pure spirit or pure awareness. That is another approach. The one approach I will speak a little while, for a few minutes on and then conclude, is the Advaita approach. The final point I will make today is the non-dualistic Vedantic approach to spiritual freedom. I would like to distinguish it from the other approaches. One approach is the devotional approach. The problem is that God exists and you do not believe in God, you don't have devotion to God, you don't surrender to God, and therefore you are in bondage. So the solution will be to have faith in God, believe in God, devotion to God, and surrender to God, and accept God, and then you will have freedom. That's the devotional approach or the bhakti approach. By the way, just now, before the talk, I was just taking a walk outside, and I nearly got converted. There were these three nice young ladies from the LDS, the Later Day Saints, and they actually gave me the card, I think. Yes. And they were like a little confused. What are you exactly? So, but basically, Hinduism is such a broad spectrum of approaches. You immediately understand where they are coming from. God exists, faith and devotion to God, that is the way to go. That's one framework. And there are many, many groups, many schools in Hinduism which are like that. Then there is another way to the problem, which is that the problem is not faith or lack of faith. The problem is our minds are so agitated that we do not see our real spiritual nature. And so the solution would be to calm down the mind in meditation, where your spiritual nature, which is there right now and free in itself, will become evident. That's the path of meditation, yoga. Patanjali says, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is calming down the modifications of the mind so that our nature as pure consciousness becomes evident. So the path is not exactly belief, the path is a path of experience, an experience of your own spiritual nature through meditation. So path of meditation. Look at the two I've set up. A path of belief and a path of meditation or experience, path of experience. You have to experience yourself. Vivekananda said in this country, religion is realization, religion is not belief. That's why you can see, if it is experience of our spiritual nature which is the goal, then faith alone is not enough. That's why sometimes it's difficult, I'm uncomfortable with the term applied to religion in this country, because faith is an umbrella term you use in America to cover all religions. But clearly, something like the Patanjali Yoga or Sankhya is not faith in the commonly understood sense of the term, not at all. It's more like a philosophical inquiry into our real nature or meditation, experience, mystical experience of our real nature. So the yogi tells you, not faith, but I will tell you how. You have to sit like this, and you have to breathe like this, and concentrate like this, and so on. You will have these extraordinary experiences which will prove to you the truth of religion. If I am an immortal soul, I must feel it. If God exists, I must see God. So that's the language of experience. Again, as against this faith, experience, one more. This is what I'm going to mention at the very end. The path of knowledge, what is called Jnana Marga. I want to distinguish it from the other two. Here we are told in the path in Advaita Vedanta, not just faith, though that is good, not even extraordinary experience, rather a philosophical inquiry, vichara, into ordinary experience. This is a problem with extraordinary experiences. Alright, I will meditate like this and I will get a samadhi. When? 20 years, 30 years. There was this story of a Zen teacher and a student, who I'm sure was an American, went to the Zen teacher and said, if I meditate like this, will I get enlightenment? Yes. How long will it take? 20 years. 20 years. If I meditate double the time and work harder, how long will it take? 40 years. Not just extraordinary experience, which might take a long time also, which we do not have right now. We don't have those mystical experiences. And if you do get it, your psychologist will tell you it's just, it's schizophrenia or an epilepsy of the brain or something like that. But rather, an inquiry into existing experience. Right now, for example, we are awake, we dream, and we have experience of deep sleep. Can we inquire into these and discover the spiritual reality we are being told? That you are existence, consciousness, bliss, you are the spirit already. You are free already. And can you discover that by an inquiry into your existing experience? So different protocols, methodologies are given in the path of knowledge. Drigdrishya Viveka, an inquiry into seer and the seer. Panchakosha Viveka, an inquiry into the 5 layers of the human personality. What kind of inquiry? A philosophical inquiry. Without any presuppositions of belief or faith. You will be led step by step to see what they are talking about. And what they are talking about is amazing, that we are already what we seek to be. We are that existence, and that absolute existence, free from the law of karma, free from from causation. It's already there. It's only at the level of manifestation that we seem to be caught in it. There's a beautiful symbology of the 2 birds. They talk about a tree in which there are 2 birds. There's a bird which keeps hopping from branch to branch and pecking at different fruits, sweet and bitter, karma. Sweet, good karma. Bitter, bad karma. And then it pecks at one particularly bitter fruit, a big shock, maybe somebody dies or some kind of terrible shock in life, and it despairs of its existence. And it looks up, and at the top of the tree it sees this shining bird, just like itself, but shining, calm, and not jumping around and pecking at fruits, like a witness sitting there. And it's attracted to the serene, sublime vision, and it hops up towards that bird, higher bird. But on the way, it sees a particularly nice fruit, and it pecks at that, and it's a nice experience. It forgets the higher bird. It starts picking at this fruit and that fruit again. That's what we do. And then gets another shock, another particularly bitter fruit. And then again it goes towards the higher bird, and so on as we evolve. Finally it takes a flight towards the higher bird, and when it approaches the higher bird, something amazing happens. The lower bird melts away and realizes it always was the higher bird. So that's the culmination. You realize you always were that. You are that right now. Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, is a beautiful poem, Song of the Sannyasi. He says, good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. Law of karma. You see, good, good, bad, bad. Whosoever wears a form wears the chain too. Wears a form means who's limited, who's born in a physical body and mind. He wears the chain. What's the chain? The ancient chain of cause and consequence. The cause and effect. Karma. Wears the chain too. Then what is spirituality? Far beyond name and form is the Atman. Atman means the self. Far beyond name and form is the Atman, ever free. Know thou art that. Sannyasi will say Om Tat Sat Om. So you have to realize ourselves. No does not mean read a book or listen to a lecture. You say, okay Swami, I've heard the lecture, am I free now? No. Not so fast. So in the path of knowledge, there is a process of learning these truths, investigating them, questioning them, and then meditating upon them until they become a living reality. Until this idea that I am the awareness in which the entire being, the lower world of its entire experiences are happening or appearing, but I in my real nature am always free from that. That becomes a living reality. When that becomes a living reality, we transcend the law of karma, then we realize that the law of karma never was. I never was a limited being going through births and deaths. That I always was free. I always was, like Shankara would say, Chidananda Rupa Shivo Shivo. I am of the nature of bliss, I am of the nature of consciousness, always free. So this is the spiritual journey. I don't think I did a very good job of it, but anyway, this is what I really wanted to share with you today, and I've almost run out of time. What we will do now is reactions, comments, and we will discuss it a little bit. I'm sure it's okay. We already have an answer. So somebody will go down to the microphone. Please tell us your name. Is there a microphone? There's no. Yeah. All right. Please tell us your name and ask a question. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, hi. My name is Pankaj.
Yes.
Thank you for a great talk, Swami. I appreciate it. I think I heard you say in one of the talks, I'm paraphrasing, I may not be accurate, but that your karma may not answer everything, may not be perfect, but there's nothing better than that to explain what's going on. I think I agree. You talked about Sarvapriyananda, and so thinking about this, one of the questions that comes to mind, and I want to get your answer for what is the Veda. One of the things, the human population reached 1 billion around 1800, and in about 120 years, 22 billion. Now, in the last 10 or 12, last several decades, every 10 or 12 years, adding 1 billion people. So the population increasing so much, and you talk about the reincarnation, and so how do you reconcile?
Where are all these guys coming from? Yeah, I just answered that. But before that, I think more important is the comment you made about law of karma being the best explanation that there is. Actually, I got this from a book called Indian Philosophy and the Problem of Evil by Professor Arthur Herman. You know what the problem of evil is? Every religion, at least every theistic religion, has to answer this. If God exists, why is there so much evil, so much suffering in the world? So it's something that anybody who takes up religion will ultimately ask this question. If God exists. So what is the answer in Indian philosophy for this? So Professor Herman, I urge you to look up that book. He has a list of 22 answers, not one answer, gathered from the different religions and philosophies and literature of the world, ancient and modern. 22 answers. Why is there evil if God exists? And finally he comes to the conclusion that the law of karma as understood in India, the different religions of India, is probably the most effective answer that we can have to this question. And he points out the defects also, the problems with the law of karma. But he says there's nothing better out there. And it's also true that, I keep hearing that the law of karma and reincarnation is difficult for Westerners to understand. But that puzzles me, because as against what? The law of karma is nothing more than cause and effect, causality. Something is happening in my life, so I look for a cause. There must be a cause to it. I do things, there must be consequences. So cause and effect, that's what the law of karma really is. Because if you don't have this, consider the alternatives. Is it completely random? It's not very satisfactory at all. If you take a completely materialistic, reductive point of view today, say an absolute atheist, what would he say? Why do I suffer? So it's luck of the draw. You suffer because, let's say, you're unlucky, that's all. There's no particular reason why you suffer. That's one answer, but not very satisfactory. That's sort of begging the question. Other answer could be because of God. But then you blame God for everything. God plays favorites then. So I think the law of karma is a pretty good answer. And it works on something that we fundamentally accept in every field. In common sense, cause and effect. In science, in politics, in all of fields of our life, we accept cause and effect. So why not in our personal life, in the life of an ordinary human being? Why not cause and effect? Okay. And your question about population increasing, are all the bugs becoming human beings? And no, what's happening, the way Vedanta would explain this is that the basic idea of a human being in Vedanta is tripartite, three aspects. Physical body, here, what we see, and a subtle body, which is called Sukshma Sharira. Again, nothing speculative, it's just what you feel inside, the first person experience of thinking, feeling, thoughts, ideas, memories, the subtle being inside, which is supposed to survive after the death of the physical body. So that's called the Sukshma Sharira. And the real you, which is associated with that subtle being, called the Atma. The Atma is changeless. In the Advaitic point of view, there is only one Atma, pure spirit, one existence. Now, as many subtle bodies are created, so many sentient beings will be there. According to all schools of Hinduism, all sentient beings are eternally existing. They have not been created at a particular time. It's just that when we get bodies, we seem to appear. So imagine a time when there was no life at all. Billions of years ago, the earth was just formed, it's too hot for life. So not even the tiniest organisms had appeared. So where were all these beings? They still existed, but they were not born as in physical bodies, in living bodies. They have to wait. But living bodies are like vehicles which we use. So that does not make much of a difference. There are any number of sentient beings. There may be billions more who are not manifested on this planet. Hopefully not anytime soon. They're already struggling with 7 billion people. So depending on the state of affairs, you might have billions of people, or billions of years ago you might have no people at all. It's just the number of physical vehicles for the sentient beings called the jivas. They can exist without these vehicles also, but they need these vehicles to do karma, to work out their karma in life. Okay, that's how they would answer it. Yes. There is a question there.
My name is Shreyashi. So the question I have is about karma in this life for us.
Yes.
In terms of, you talked about moksha and that kind of freedom from the cycle of life and death and all that. But would you also say that karma gives us a way to both take responsibility and feel empowered in our lives here? Because, as you just said, we do not have to depend on the will of God for what we're experiencing, nor a sense of randomness. So it is really in our control, because what we have done is what we are experiencing either now or from before. So is it freedom in that sense also, that here and now kind of freedom that the karma theory gives us?
Correct. In fact, the law of karma, basically, what it states is that what we are today is what we have made of ourselves in our past lives. And what we will be later in this life or in other lives to come is in our hands. So that's a positive, affirmative interpretation of karma. But remember, karma has been interpreted in a negative, fatalistic way too. There's no way of denying that. Swami Vivekananda, when he was in India, there was this famous incident when this group of people came to him. They had found a cow protection society, and they wanted money to raise money for cows. Vivekananda said, there's nothing wrong with that. But the people in your province, where you have come from, there was a nice, interesting dialogue between them. People in your province where you come from, there's a famine. People are starving. So don't you think you should raise money to feed them, to starving people, before you take care of the cows? And those people said, very interesting response, oh, they're starving, that's their karma. And Vivekananda was furious. He said, if it's their karma to starve, it's your karma to help them. So, karma can be interpreted in a fatalistic way. We have heard it in India that, there are phrases like this in almost every Indian language. They say kapal, that means it's written on my forehead. Basically it means it's all my past karma which is coming to play right now. What can I do? It's my karma. So it's a fatalistic way, negative way of interpreting karma. But you're right. The positive way, the whole point of the theory of karma is you can make your own life. Only it takes a long time. It's not like there was this book, forget the name. Basic idea was, if you want something, think about it intensely and keep on thinking about it, you're going to happen in your life. That's really nice to listen to. But does it work? It may work. It may actually work. Consistently, if you pursue something, you will get some of it at least. But remember that other factors are also at play, and those factors are controlled by our past karma. One Swami in the Himalayas, Ramana Saraswati, he put it this way. They have big pots in India with rice is cooked, and they have huge ladles with which to pick up that rice. Now he said, if your pot has a lot of rice, you just push your ladle down into the big pot and you come up with an entire ladle full of rice. But if your pot has very little rice, you have to go further down, and then you have to work hard to pull up the rice from the bottom. And if your pot is empty, all you get is a clanging sound when you put your ladle into the pot. So you have to use the ladle. You have to put in some effort, but a good deal of it also depends on the good karma that we have accumulated or not accumulated. But no effort goes to waste. So if I don't have a pot full of rice, if I keep trying, the idea is law of karma says, later on you will have a pot full of rice. But yes, basically it's a positive message. But remember, however, the ultimate message is not to keep on generating good karma, but actually to transcend the law of karma, to get freedom from it. Question there? Was there a hand somewhere here also? Two people here.
Hello, my name is Shanta.
Yes.
My question is, how is the concept of the idea of spiritual freedom in Shunyavada Buddhism? Like, for example, in Advaita Vedanta, we have, you can say, Aham Brahmasmi would be the, verbal translation of the realization. So, what is the idea of spiritual realization in Shunyavada?
You're asking a very difficult question. To put it in context, what he is asking is that, see, in Buddhism there are different schools of thought. There is the Madhyamaka Buddhism, which is based on the teachings of Nagarjuna, who lived about 2000 years ago in India, in a place called Andhra Pradesh in India. So, Mula Madhyamaka Karika, and that led to the school of the Madhyamaka Buddhism, which is not as esoteric as you might think. It sounds very strange. It's basically the school of the Tibetan Buddhists. The Dalai Lama and the Tibetan Buddhists, their philosophy is this Madhyamaka Buddhism. It's a combination of two schools of ancient Indian Buddhism, the Madhyamaka and the Vijnanavada. So that forms the philosophical basis of modern Tibetan Buddhism. What would be freedom in their view? It's the school of the void, Shunyata. I would be inclined, at the risk of being scolded, to say that pretty much the same as Advaita Vedanta. There is a school of, there are a number of modern philosophers and thinkers, our order among them, Vivekananda among them also, who would say ultimately the teachings of the Buddha and the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, they are similar in the ultimate sense, not in the way it is taught, not in the approaches. Now I would risk being scolded by both sides. There are scholars of Advaita who would pounce on me for saying such a thing, and there are scholars in Buddhism who would not agree to this at all. The Buddhists say that the Advaitists have got it wrong, and the Advaitists will say the Buddhists have got it wrong. Basically, the fundamental difference, the Hindus believe in an eternal spirit existing existence, Atman. And the Buddhists deny precisely such an Atman. So, Anatman. But it's not entirely as different as one would think. If you investigate deeply, and there are scholars who are working on this, I would like to mention Miri Al-Bahari, who is an Australian philosopher. She is in fact working on the hard problem of consciousness in a Buddhistic perspective and a Vedantic perspective. And she says basically, in ultimate analysis, they are leading to the same thing through different paths. So yes, my answer would be, both of them talk about an ultimate transcendence beyond limited existence, freedom from limited existence, that's common to both. And the ultimate reality, we would call it Sat Chit Ananda, infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. They would characterize it as Shunyata, emptiness. Yet, if you look at Nagarjuna's description of the Shunyata, Chatushkoti Vinirmukta Tattva, and Gaudapada's characterization of the Turiya, same language they're using. Both of them are using the same language. If you see Nagarjuna's first invocation, beginning of the Mula Madhyama Prakarika, very interesting. He uses the terms Prapanchopashamam, Shantam, Shivam, Advayam. What is Shunyam? What is the void? It is the cessation of the universe. It is beyond all sorrow. It is peace itself. It is Shiva, auspiciousness, and non-dual. If you see the language of the seventh mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad, it says Prapanchopashamam, Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. Cessation of the universe, peace itself, auspiciousness, non-duality. Exactly the same, almost exactly the same Sanskrit words. Though Gaudapāda and Nagarjuna are separated by several hundred years, and the Upanishad may be long before Nagarjuna. But again, this is one point of view. I know a whole range of both Hindu scholars and Buddhist scholars who vociferously stick to their positions. There's a damn reason for that. I remember once in Delhi, I was giving a talk on Advaita view of consciousness. And there was a Lama, a very learned Tibetan Lama, who was giving a talk on the Buddhist perspective on consciousness. And after that, a lady stood up and said, this was in Delhi University, she stood up and said to the Lama, what the Swami said seems very much like what you were saying. And she was saying, no, it is different, you know. And I said, look, being a Hindu, we are synthetic, so we try to bring it together. I said, yes, it's different, the paths are different, but the metaphor of many paths leading to the same goal. So they all meet, that path and this one also, they come to the same realization finally. But he wouldn't have any of it. A very sweet man. So he said, yes, they come to the same point, but after that, they separate again. I'm just putting it out there. So there are this whole range. There are two hands here. Can you bring there, right there at the back? And there's one here too. Am I missing any other hands here? Okay.
My name is R.C. Krishna. As you rightly mentioned that there are different paths in Hinduism which leads to freedom from karma and moksha. Yes. And explained about Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti path, the Dhyan path, the Yoga path itself.
Right.
But they also talk about Karma Yoga.
Yes.
The karma itself leads to moksha.
Yes.
So how does, when we are trying to be free from this cause and effect of karma itself, how does it lead to moksha?
Glad you asked that. And I should have mentioned it because that was the thesis of Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda. As a follower of Vivekananda, I should have mentioned it. You will notice something, in the traditional approaches in Hinduism, in Vedanta, Karma Yoga always has been given a subservient position. If you ask Shankaracharya, what is the way? He will say, the way is knowledge, Jnana Yoga. You have to realize yourself as Brahman. What about meditation? It can help. It helps to concentrate the mind. But that concentrated mind should give rise to knowledge that I am Brahman, I am the Absolute, in that sense. What about Karma Yoga? He says it helps. Shankara says it helps. In the Gita Bhashya, it purifies the mind. But that purified mind, the concentrated mind, purified by karma, concentrated by meditation, should ultimately come to the path of knowledge and get released through knowledge. So you see, karma has been put at the bottom of the ladder. Karma yoga is preparatory, not final, by Shankara. Ramanuja, he puts it in another way. Karma yoga is preparatory, then jnana yoga, and ultimately release is obtained by bhakti, by devotion to God. Whichever acharya you see, the traditional acharyas, they all admit the importance of karma. Sri Ramakrishna himself says karma is the first step in spiritual life. So karma yoga is fundamental. Swami Vivekananda clearly says karma yoga by itself, he regards it as an independent path. How can that happen? How can causality lead to escape from causality? So the idea is unselfish work. It's not work itself which binds. Notice one thing, all those whom we consider to be saints, enlightened people, bodhisattvas, jivan muktas in different spiritual traditions of the world, almost all of them have been active people, have been fully engaged in doing good to humanity. Some have been recluses, but many have been very active. Vivekananda himself was active. Shankaracharya himself was tremendously active. So karma by itself, action by itself, need not be binding, need not be productive of bondage. A very active life is perfectly compatible with enlightenment. The difference is, what is that action for? Is it for, we go back to artha and kama, getting pleasure and success for oneself? Or is it for the welfare of others? The difference between sakama karma and nishkama karma. Karma done for selfish ends, karma done for absolutely pure altruistic ends. That kind of karma does not bind. On the contrary, it purifies the mind, it destroys past karma is exhausted, and in a pure mind, enlightenment becomes very easy, very much possible. So that's how karma yoga by itself. Many acharyas might not agree with this, but Vivekananda strongly said, he said, the philosophy is Shiva Dhyana Jiva Seva. Worship of all sentient beings by seeing God in them, the absolute in them. Yes.
My name is Arun. My question is, you touched upon some a lot. What is the Advaitin point of view towards bhakti? In the light of moksha, is moksha academic to bhakti?
Bhakti is love of God, devotion to God. So what would an Advaitin say to bhakti? Good. Every Advaita teacher, Shankaracharya himself, would say bhakti is extraordinarily important for enlightenment. But they would stick to that ultimately it has to be knowledge. You have to realize yourself as that spirit, that Brahman, free from karma. So you have to realize yourself as that. You want that knowledge has to come. Now bhakti might help you. Bhakti might help you to get that knowledge. So bhakti is preparatory. Bhakti is very helpful. Practically how it is helpful, one monk in one of the traditional Vedantic monks, he told me this. He said, for those on the path of devotion, bhakti, for them the path of knowledge is not necessary. They can do without it also. But for those on the path of knowledge, remember, this is a person on the path of knowledge. For those on the path of knowledge, the path of devotion, love of God is very helpful. Why? Very interesting. Knowledge works at the level of the intellect. At least for us, for beginners. Knowledge works at the level of buddhi, intellect. So ignorance at the level of the intellect is removed by knowledge at the level of the intellect. I do not know something, ignorance. Now I know it, knowledge. All at the level of the intellect. But desire, calm for things of the world, that is not an intellectual desire. He said that works at the level, he said prana, we might say it works at the level of the heart. The nature of desire is, I want this. This means the world. The nature of bhakti is, it keeps the same I want, but it replaces the word with God. So my Krishna or Christ or Rama or Durga or Kali or whatever you put it, God is put there. The same desire which was flowing to the world now flows to God. What happens to many people on the path of knowledge is, they may understand something at the level of the intellect. They find it very difficult to live the life. Not because they do not know. They know. But the pull of the flesh, the desires of the unpurified mind lead them straight back into worldliness again. And so there is a conflict which is set up. It's nothing very esoteric. In fact, a psychologist working here in America, Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T. He wrote this book, The Happiness Hypothesis, where he asked this question. There is so much of these self-help books available now, a lot of literature. Barnes and Noble, you find whole sections. How to be rich, how to be happy, and 7 habits of highly effective people, and so on. And so many things. Starting with Dale Carnegie and so on. It's a huge body of literature. And it's not invalid. A lot of it is good advice. So it's all there, it's popular. So our lives should be transformed. People should be completely changed by this. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? It works only to a minimal extent, not too much, not too well. Why not? And he came to the conclusion that, see, what do the books provide? What do the seminars provide? What do the lectures provide? They provide knowledge, information, and it satisfies the intellect. He gives the format of a man riding an elephant. The Mahut is the person riding an elephant. Now, the Mahut knows where to go, but he will be able to go there only if the elephant listens to him. The elephant is much stronger than the Mahut. The elephant wants to go there and pick up some bananas, and the Mahut wants to go there. Mahut is helpless. He's not strong enough to drag the elephant there. Exactly like that, the body is the elephant and the intellect is the Mahut. So the intellect is convinced by lectures. You read and you are convinced, oh, this is great. Tomorrow I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and do yoga and meditation. I'm convinced. But who is the I who is convinced? The intellect. Next morning when it comes, the alarm clock rings. You get up and do yoga. The body says, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. It's not you who has to get up, tells the intellect. I have to get out of the blankets and it's cold, it's freezing. I don't want to do this. So the desires, unregenerate, unrefined desires are the problem. Bhakti deals with it. Bhakti makes the desires flow towards God. It cleanses up the heart, so to say. It trains the elephant. Good question. So, take away from this, is Bhakti good for the path of knowledge? Yes. There are those on the path of knowledge who make fun of Bhakti. They are immature Advaitins. A mature Advaitin would never make fun of Bhakti. Would in fact follow all the rituals or whatever. Some practice of Bhakti Advaitin would definitely have. All the great teachers have a practice of Bhakti. Yes. We are almost out of time. I'll try to answer rapid fire.
Alright, so I had a question. So, karma and the effect and cause and effect kind of psychology. So, there is a fire which burned down my engineering building right across the street, and the same fire is responsible to generate the power, electricity, and everything. So, the same cause is creating a bad effect and a good effect. Is it possible to become invariant of the cause and make it always translate to a good effect?
I'm not sure I understand the question. The same cause can lead to a multiplicity of effects. In some cases, some would be benefited, and for them it would be good.
Yeah.
Some would be hurt by it. So the Gita says every action is a mixed action. You cannot say it is good or bad. For people with a particular karma, it might be the result would be good. For people with bad karma, in that context, the result would be misery or suffering. But I'm not very sure. Is that what you're asking?
So my question is slightly in a greedy way. So irrespective of what the cause is, I always want to create a positive effect out of it. So say it's a fire, I always want to generate an electricity, and I don't want the fire as a cause to create a damage.
Oh, Vedanta, the answer to that is pretty simple. Vedanta would say that's not possible. Every action in this world will generate a mixed result. Depending on the people who are the beneficiaries or the people who suffer from that action, they will see it from their perspective, and their perspective will be different. Right? Yes.
Can I ask you about my
Yeah, just go ahead.
So after reading Swami Vivekananda for like 2 years, although he is the pioneer of Advaita Vedanta philosophy in recent age,
yes,
but still I was confused or bewildered that if you see him like in USA, he was like Karma Yogi, then sometimes he's meditating, then he's doing meditation, then he's using his intellect and his jnana yogi, and then of course he was a bhakti yogi back in the beginning. So
yes.
then you said that he's following Advaita Vedanta path, but still he's doing all this, 4 different things.
Right.
How does he reconcile with all this? And
Correct. It's a good question. Remember what I said about the different paths. They're not exclusive. I'm putting it in a different theoretical paradigms. But practically, when you start spiritual life, when you start spiritual seeking, it would be a very good idea to do all of them. That's why Vivekananda spoke about the harmony of yogas. He said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within. And you can do it by work, karma yoga. You can do it by love, bhakti yoga. You can do it by psychic control, meditation, raja yoga. You can do it by philosophy. In fact, he uses not the path of knowledge, he uses the term philosophy. You can do it by philosophy, jnana yoga. By one or more or all of these, and be free. That is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details. We have the power of understanding. We are intellects. Let's use it in the path of knowledge. We have a heart to feel. Let's use it for love, bhakti, express love. We have hands to work. Let's use it for karma yoga, for service. We have a mind. Let's use it for meditation, for focus. In fact, somebody said the 4 paths, 4 broad paths of for spirituality. Can you tell me each of them in one word? It's a little difficult. Not even one sentence, one word. I said I can try. Path of karma yoga, one word for it would be unselfishness. Unselfish action or unselfishness. The path of bhakti yoga, one word for it would be love. Love of God, certainly. But let's say if you just say love, that's good enough. Love. The path of Raja Yoga, one word, focus. 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 Concentration. Focus. One word. The path of Jnana Yoga, I would say reality orientation. Always inquire and stick to what is real. Giving up what is an appearance of it. So, unselfishness, love, focus, and reality orientation. Karma, bhakti, dhyana, meditation, and jnana. I think that's a very good way to end this talk. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swamiji, for a very enlightening and engaging talk. Especially the question-answer session. I think next time we'll keep a little longer for question-answer session. There's a good exchange of ideas between that. We still have one more chance to hear Swamiji in Michigan. Tomorrow he is going to be talking in Troy. There are flyers outside if you are interested in that. I would also like to thank a couple of other Nanak and Nini Mahanti for hosting Swamiji for the last few days. Organization at MSU, especially Sachin. The staff for the Skiva, they have been very helpful and they accommodated all our requests, and whenever we approached them, they were very friendly, very helpful, so I would like to thank them. And Swamiji, one humble request that in future, please make East Lansing a stop every summer if possible.